Is on the boil. Massive anti-government protests continue to grip the capital Tbilisi. Thousands of demonstrators have filled the streets accusing the ruling Georgian Dream Party of authoritarian behavior and leaning towards Moscow. Violent clashes broke out between the police and protesters. Tensions soared when large crowds marched towards the presidential palace, with some attempting to force their way into the compound. Police can be seen using the pepper spray and water cannons to disperse the crowd, while police in Georgia have arrested 5 people trying to storm the presidential palace.
We do not want to live in Russia. We want Europe. We must get rid of this government because it is crystal clear that they are pro-Russian authorities.
According to reports, at least 21 police officers and 6 protesters sustained injuries and were rushed to hospital.
Everything will be very peaceful exactly till the government extort to violence. If they do, we are ready to fight back.
Riot police fired tear gas, flashbang grenades at protesters as they waved Georgian and European Union flags demanding the government's resignation and new elections amid allegations of electoral fraud and democratic backsliding. Georgian President Mikhail Kavelashvili has accused foreign intelligence services of orchestrating efforts to call for the overthrow of the ruling government.
The plan that was agreed to by 179 nations. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. It is the inventory and control plan. Inventory and control of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. And this is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations back in 1992. It's a United Nations plan. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. And so many of us around the world think that, well, sustainable development, it just sounds so great. Isn't it about recycling and creative reuse and creating energy and food resources for everyone? And the answer is no, it really is not. It's about moving populations into city centers, concentrated city centers, and clearing them out of the rural areas. All systems have to be brought into harmony in order to control them all. Because when systems don't meet, when they're out of balance or not in sync with one another, they can't be controlled centrally. And the goal of Agenda 21 is one world government and total control from a central unit.
We have an interesting story that seems to be developing out of California. This was captured by a woman named Anel from north of Santa Barbara. She claims that California is sinking and she has proof. She is waking up to water that is just soaking up from underground, and they have no idea what it is. They've called the city, they have gone out there, they've actually tested it, and it's not city water, meaning it doesn't have chlorine or anything like that. They think it's groundwater. From where? They don't know. But it seems to be covering her property, and only properties on her side. The other side of the road seems to be dry. Is there something to this story? Is this proof to her theory that California is starting to sink, and now we're starting to see those actual signs? Take a look at what she has to say, look at the video, tell me what you think, comment below.
So California is falling into the water, and I have proof. I called the city yesterday about all that water that's coming up out of the ground on our property. And when the lady told me to check our water meter, I pulled the the lid off the thing and it was like almost covered in water. And I Googled it and it said that that's not normal. Then I called my husband and I was like, there is water everywhere. So the initial leak that we found is on we'll say the west side of our property. Our water meter is on the east side of our property. So there's water coming up on both sides. And I told him, I called the city and they just really don't seem to care. But there's water coming from somewhere. It's a lot of water. And it seems to be more and more water too. That's the thing. So he came home from work yesterday and he looked in the water meter and he was scooping out water by the cupful and looking at it. And then he emailed somebody from the water company, not the city, the water company. And then this morning, when I got back from taking the girls to school, there was a guy parked outside. And so I was like, oh, are you here to check on the water situation? He was like, yeah. And I was like, did you see what was going on? And he was like, well, I don't really know what's going on. And I said, well, there's water coming up from the ground and it's wet. And he was like, well, everything is wet, which is fair because we live in like just kind of like a wet area. In the morning, it's always misty and foggy and dewy and everything is wet. So really, it's not always noticeable. But I showed him the spot where we noticed like where Patrick thought that his truck was leaking. And then I showed him off to the side, there's like at least an inch of water. And then I said, and then our water meter is also underwater. And maybe, he said, it's a thinker. He kept saying that over and over again. It's a thinker. And I was like, okay. Spot is right here. This is the spot in our driveway where Patrick thought that his truck was leaking. And if you go over here, this is where things are getting very like soggy. Then if you walk over here to the east side of our property, this whole area is always wet. If you look across the street though, like all the dirt and stuff over there is not wet like it is on our side, not even in the morning. So okay, and I'm gonna check the water meter again. Ugh, see, it is just so wet over here to see if it filled back up with water. Oh, yep, it filled right back up. We emptied it again and it is full of water again. But look, it's not spinning, so there's no leak.
To realize that they can use light frequencies to destroy the leptin melanocortin pathways in the brain to control people. They don't need LSD. They don't need mescaline. They don't need anything else, okay? And the reason why this program gets changed is during its evolution, they find out that people that have heavily melanated skin are the most difficult to control, okay? So there's another DARPA program that you may have heard about. I'm sure Whitney Webb and Mark Godwin have heard about it, but have never linked it to this story. It's called the Targeted Individual Program. In other words, how you control people utilizing remote technology. Well, who's the guy that actually really discovered this whole thing? Alan Fry. Alan Fry's looked at a good guy in my world. Why? He's the first guy that showed that when you zap a brain with any type of electromagnetic radiation, it opens the blood-brain barrier. So you can take bad shit and get it in. What magically happens in the United States at that time? People start making processed food. What also magically happens? Drugs start to come on market, and they have a lot of fillers and preservatives in them. Guess what all those fillers and preservatives and all the fake processed shit was really about? It was about figuring out how to get toxins from your gut into your brain so that you could electromagnetically target them. That
2012 wins Miss Arizona, competes in Miss USA, a pageant owned by ... Trump. Okay, want to know something really weird? So she had said in a podcast that she had never competed in pageants and had never done any modeling before, until one day she receives an invitation in the mail to become a model and start doing pageants. And the pageants that she started doing were Miss USA pageants owned by Trump. So she modeled for Trump. She was one of Trump's pageant girls. But did you know that she was also a casting director at the same time that she was doing all of this stuff for Trump? Now, she doesn't specify on her website if she worked as a casting director for Trump, but Around the time that she was claiming to be a casting director, she also owned a ministry that was working with the U.S. military in Romania. The area in Romania where she was operating this ministry had a bunch of locals accusing these evangelical ministries of kidnapping children and trafficking them out of the country. These children were being found in the UK, in Israel, and were also being sent to undisclosed private islands. Locals demanded authorities look into it, but they never did. Now, Charlie Kirk really wanted the Epstein files released, but did his wife? Prior to marrying Charlie Kirk, she was a multi-millionaire on her own, and since his passing, she's also amassed all of his wealth, plus an additional at least $5 million in donations. She's currently considered the most powerful woman in the United States, with mega fans begging her to run as vice president in 2028. Let's talk about their first date, because it was actually a job interview. Back in 2018, 2 years after Donald Trump had started working with Charlie Kirk had hosted a Turning Point USA opening event for one of the offices that they had opened. And Erica and Charlie Kirk were introduced to each other. Charlie Kirk instantly thought that she was beautiful, but thought that she was really smart, and allegedly one of their mutuals had suggested that Charlie Kirk hire Erica. I'm assuming it was Donald Trump or someone on his team, because Donald Trump had signed on to work with Charlie Kirk, and Erica was already one of Donald Trump's employees, so it would make the most sense for Donald Trump and his team to encourage Charlie Kirk to hire Donald Trump's employees. Anyways, Charlie Kirk DM'd Erica, invited her for a job interview. The job interview ended up turning into a date, and Erica allegedly had said, "You're not going to be my boss, you're going to